Hey, paisans, the time has come. On the air since 2009, the independently produced, non-FCC compliant champ of video game talk podcasting. Here comes Tiger Claw Radio. Here's your host, Critical Failure.
Phantom Power's turning on now. You gotta give me a second here. Let's get the input up to something acceptable. There we go. How's that sound? Welcome to Tiger Claw Radio, everybody. This is your host, Critical Failure. You are listening to episode whatever. I've lost count. This week, I returned to the old news ticker, which I did a few weeks back. Just went scraping, seeing what's going on. We got some weird news in the handheld front with the emulation handhelds. We have an old prototype of Super Mario Bros. 3 for the PC that surfaced. On top of that, we have a bit of an embarrassment for Capcom in relation to the last Resident Evil game that came out. All that and more coming up. But first, since I have not yet been to Battle of the Bits this morning, let's listen to something that's really uplifting, that I think most of us should know. This is not a chiptune per se, but an actual old game OST that I happen to have in my go-to file. It's one that harkens back to when I was a wee young lad. The file name is merely entitled Maricola, and it's from Star Tropics. Stick with us. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Incredibly uplifting track for a game that sticks out in my mind as one of the most, how should I put this? There really is a lot of like scary stuff in Star Tropics. Not that it's like a horror game or anything like that, but you know how like in the 80s they were able to do things that they don't do now? Like I was watching Sesame Street with my kids and we were watching like an old 60s episode and they were calling each other stupid and stuff. It's just little things like that. You see a lot of that in Star Tropics. Like, for example, the third level, you're walking around in a graveyard, and then you go, which in and of itself is not, not too out of the ordinary. But then when you start the level, there's like ostriches with skull heads, which again, when I was a kid, I didn't think anything of it. But looking at it now, it's like, wow, the imagery was pretty. It's pretty, pretty intense. At least for like a main line first-party Nintendo game. So why I thought it would have been great to see Star Tropics make a comeback in the 3D era, like on the Nintendo 64 or something like that. It'd been the perfect time for it, because that age of player that remembers that game had matured. We'd all gotten older, so now they could bring back that tone of, not too mature, but just a little bit more than you'd see now. Like, for example, when Mike dies, like the hero, when you lose a life, he actually dies. And you can see his ghost going to heaven. Good old Star Tropics. I miss that game. I really do. Alright, so let's do the news. Let's see what's going on. I opened up a few tabs that are worth checking out here. First one I want to talk about is a crack that was employed for Resident Evil 8 apparently fixes a ton of performance problems. So here's the deal. This story is over on PCGamer.com, and apparently the de novo that they used on Resident Evil 8 is so intense and so resource consuming that it lowers the performance of the game considerably. So not only is the game cracked, but it's like showing front and center the damage that the DRM is doing to the regular buyer. And there's a video where you can see the standardized Steam version, you know, split screen right next to the cracked version. Sure enough, the standard version, it looks okay, but as soon as things start happening on the screen, it starts to stutter. So, you know, that's something I hope they fix. I have not bought into the new Resident Evil game yet. And this is one of the reasons why I don't get games straight off the line for the most part. Let them be out for a year or so this sort of thing can be, you know, addressed. But that was a thing. Just, you know, something else that early adopters have to deal with. In other news, here's one. Another one I found on PC Gamer. Advertisers are going after our dreams now because we live in a nightmare world. Alright, so this one I don't think is as bad as they're making it out to be. But I do think it's worth talking about. They wouldn't name the company that did it, but there was a company that created like an ASMR or whatever it is, sort of meditative track that you're supposed to listen to while you're sleeping, and then it's supposed to advertise to you in your sleep. Look, if you're going to voluntarily play audio from a company to listen to while you're sleeping, you deserve it, man. There's no way that's not going to make you wake up as, you know, some sort of corporate zombie. Oh, hang on a second here. There we go. But that is a thing. I think that's one that exists purely for the title. Clickbait, as it were. However, that is a real thing that did happen. So, it is what it is. The only thing that really stuck out to me as like positive over on PC Gamer is that ID Software, in a stack of old discs, they found a prototype for Super Mario Bros. 3. Now, I didn't know this, but apparently when they created Commander Keen, they were trying to make an engine for Super Mario Bros. 3. And they were going to, you know, they made a proof of concept, and they tried to get in touch with Nintendo, and there was no way it was going to happen. But there's now a little video you can see, and apparently the disc still exists somewhere. So I saw the video of what Super Mario Bros. 3 looked like, you know, via the Commander Keen engine, and it looks like Commander Keen. I don't know. You got to take this kind of thing. You got to take in the context of the time, because this was when, you know, games on the PC were really like at the start of the shareware era where everything exploded. This is not as, you know, it's way better than the Hudson soft version of Super Mario Bros. 1, which is probably why they stayed away from this. But so it still looks like an old PC game and very inferior because of it, but way better than the old PC games we actually had at the time. And that's why I think it's interesting to me. So if Nintendo had actually gone with it, there's a chance that Mario's face could have been all over the shareware era, as opposed to Commander Keen. Interesting thought. But that's the thing. King's Bounty 2 is a thing. I saw some footage for it. I saw a trailer. Swingle, I know, is a big fan of the old King's Bounty games. I like them as well. They seem a bit more like a faster flowing Heroes of Might and Magic, at least in terms of the combat. But I'm looking at some of the footage of King's Bounty 2. It's looking good. So that's there. You know, there's rarely is there a new game coming out that's like that has turned my head. This is one. So that's a thing. And then we come to indie handhelds. Emulation machines, whatever you want to call them. And Bernick, which has been front and center in this scene, are releasing the RG300X. And Retro Dodo put an article out saying this is one you should probably skip. And basically they took the, what was the Game Boy Advance model that I skipped? The one at the very end. The Micro? They made it look like the Game Boy Advance Micro. And, it's not a bad looking handheld, to be perfectly honest. It's just that the screen is 2.8 inches but the whole unit itself is the same size as the 300 or the 350, which has a screen that's like an entire inch bigger, and it's not any more powerful either. And all of that together would be fine if it was priced appropriately, but we're talking about $150. So, how should I put this? Anbernic is a company where, when I look back at their product line, they've hit consistently time after time after time. They've all hit. This is one that I agree with Retro Dodo. I don't think this is going to pan out very well for them. But, you know, every company has a turkey. I hope this doesn't slow them down at all. And last but not least, there's a lot of good stuff over on indieretronews.com. That's the site that does a lot of the... what do you call it? D-makes for like mostly old computer systems. Like, hey, there's a version of this coming out for Commodore 64. That kind of thing is going to be covered there. And we see A Light from Within being a Zelda-esque adventure game for your Nintendo Entertainment System. Here's the thing I wanted to mention, and this is the reason why I thought this was worth reading on the air. Especially amongst these tiny indie games, I'm seeing a lot of, hey, this is a Zelda-esque game. This game is like Zelda. This is a game that is sort of like Zelda. Isn't that just like action RPG? Isn't that what that's called? What happened to that genre? Is Zelda really like the only good example of an action RPG we have? I mean, I guess they could. It's fair to say it wouldn't make sense for them to be like, hey, this game was like Illusion of Gaia, but for your NES. It doesn't look like a one-to-one remake. The hero doesn't look like, look like Link exactly. But that's a thing. Screenshot looks okay. And I'm looking to see if this is like released already or if this is one that's on the way out. But it's an itch link. Yeah, itch.io. It's out. At least there's a demo out that's name your own price. You can get that for free, which is awesome. Seeing a few more screenshots here. That looks cool. It's nice to see some new stuff coming out for the NES. You know, with the NES Builder Developer Suite out. There's a lot more, new games coming out these past couple years than there have been in the decade leading up to it. We saw a couple of like indie NES games in the early years of TCR, but not like now. Not as many as now they're everywhere. So that's neat. There's that, and then we have a couple of, I'd hate to say it, but like throwaway games. Fast Food, Endless Eating, Atari 2600 coming to C64. Lumberjack Revision, further enhanced C64 Amiga port. Pillars, a Columns clone released for the ZX Spectrum. And so on, and so on, and so on. Yeah, and that's the news. Whole lot of nothing going on. We have a bad handheld, we have egg on Capcom's face again, and we have D-makes aplenty, D-makes galore. Here you go. Here's one for you. I went over to Battle of the Bits, and apparently I got my wrist slapped on that website. Let me head over to my profile here so I can read what they wrote. Give me a second. Yeah, here we go. And this was left by Cleater, which sucks because this guy is awesome. I always play Cleater's work here on the air. And this is a person who shows up multiple entries in every single, major competition, which, as I found out, is even more of a feat than I had thought. Because like submitting like an NES chiptune, you can only submit one chiptune per format. So that means in order to do that, you got to learn how to make quality chiptunes on several different trackers. So here we go. Cleater says on my profile, troll ailment, which means you can't vote for 2 weeks because you voted all one entries in a battle or all entries you voted on. Make sure to vote fair and try and make distinctions. Thanks. They took my ability to vote because I wasn't nice. Oh dear. Oh dear me. I think I only voted on like 2 other songs that I thought were overrated and I didn't like at all. So yeah, so that's a thing. So don't vote 1 star out of 5 or they will slap your wrist and tell you can't vote anymore. which really sucks. It really sucks, especially since after that I took a look at my entries, like my lifetime entries over on the course of my time at the site, and I've submitted 5 tracks on Battle of the Bits, which is not a lot. And of the 5 tracks, I'll tell you how I've placed in each one of those competitions. 294 out of 304th place. That's the last one that I just did. 7th out of 8th place. 27th out of 28th place. 39th out of 47th place, which is probably the best I've ever done. And 233rd out of 245th place. I'm bottom fragging in each one of these competitions. So whatever it is I'm doing, it's being done twice as hard to me. I don't know. I'm getting a bad taste in my mouth about the community over on Battle of the Bits, which sucks because there is quality music. But I have yet to have like a good positive interaction, I think, with another user. So the songs get put out and your songs get hits, but I don't see, I'm not making any friends over there, which sucks because I think that's an important part of the equation. Oh yeah, here's one for you. And when the icons next to my name, there is a troll icon. So they have publicly labeled me as a troll as well. As if like trying to make bros is not hard enough on Battle of the Bits. So thanks guys. Thanks much. I appreciate that. I hope you enjoy having the 5 tracks that I made available on your website. So I love contributing to a site that takes care of me like this. Alright. Well, I'm like legit angry now. I'm like legit pissed off. Alright, you know what? I'm gonna find some tracks to play that aren't from Battle of the Bits. Okay? There you go. So I went over to chipmusic.org, which is still around. Songs get put up not very often, but it does happen. So this is from Daisy, and this came out June 11th. So it's a month plus old, and it's also like one of the most updated songs. Probably like, I don't know, 5th or 6th place, something like that. Made with Famatracker. Making this made my head hurt. I really dig it. I think this is a good track. Stick with us, you're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Chipmusic.org is where it's at. That's where it's at. For all your chiptune community needs. We're going to do one more before we shift gears. This one is called The Pool's Closed by Sloopy Gloop. It's a little bit long, but this is a classic LSDJ format track. I dig it. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. More when we come back.
So here's what it is. I am reading so hard about this chiptune thing, and I'm so unhappy with really what I feel like is a community not being open and accessible enough. Because let's face it, let's be honest, all right? My chiptunes are not great. They're okay. They're not great, all right? I get it that if you listen to that track we just played, that's better than anything I've made. It's okay, you know? But I also feel like I can't come to the party because I'm not over a certain threshold. And so the way I choose to deal with that is by I'm going to create another chiptune compilation. We did the first one. I'm super proud of how it turned out. And that's something that's achieved by just being as kind as I possibly can and as sharing as I possibly can with everybody.
And what better way to fight what feels like a little toxicity? A little bit? I don't know. Maybe I was the one being toxic by downvoting people. What are you gonna do? But yeah. So we're gonna do another chiptune compilation. I'm gonna reach out to people. I'm gonna find some folks who also have not been able to access the inner workings. And we're going to make an awesome comp. And I've never been more motivated to get Famitracker back open and make some more chiptunes of my own. Chiptunes that would fall under the old Green Leo name and format. It's going to be a good time. Yeah, so now that I've read so hard, let's take a minute to tip my hat and thank the sponsors. Because this is indeed a Patreon-sponsored program. Now, to the people who support the show, I offer early access. Right, it comes up Wednesday for them, and then the following Monday for everyone else. They get a series called Monday Night Morrowind that I put out every single week. And then, as an old tradition here on TCR, I also read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen, because they truly are the VIPs. They are Hemrock, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and Eric Kentroller. Thank you all so much for keeping the lights on, and I hope you're enjoying the party.
It's time for the fail bag.
Yes, friends, it's time for the fail bag, that fantabulous form of entertainment where I read your questions, comments, anything you have that you want to be read on the air. You can head over to YouTube and leave a comment. If you know me personally, you can shoot me an email. Just be clear about what I can and can't say on the air. So I don't want to say anything accidentally that I shouldn't be. Yeah, and we'll get right to it. Let's start by one from Hemrock, who I believe reached out to me direct via email. Give me 1 second here, because I don't actually have my email up, which is a problem, but we'll get that. We will get that. Where it at? Okay. Greetings and salutations, Critical Failure. Thank you as usual for another episode, and thank you for showing me the wonder that is the Pico 8 fantasy console. I too tried some games, I too tried to get some of the games to work on a Powkiddy V90 like you, and I had some mixed results. I even tried to add additional files from the Raspberry Pi Pico 8 version, but without any luck. I did some reading online, and it appears the Powkiddy is only compatible with carts that are version... hang on, what do we got? Yeah, we're okay. That are version... I lost my place here. Yeah, 1.12.c, or earlier. Some of the games that did work for me included Checkmate, a simple but aesthetically pleasing version of chess, Breakout Hero, an Arachnoid clone, and the very popular Celeste. What games did you get working on the Powkiddy? Have you started looking into the programming side of the Pico 8? And if you decide to make a game, what type of game are you thinking of making? Super Crate Box would be a great fit for a Pico 8 game. This cart here looks pretty close. And there's more to the email, but I want to see... Yeah, Super Disc Box, that's what he put. Yeah, that does look very close. Oop. Are we peaking? It looks like we're peaking pretty hard. Let me back up a little bit. Why can I not hear it through my headphones? There we go. Super Disc Box is the cart that he put. And that's a pretty good game. I didn't stick with it for very long. It did feel different from Super Crate Box, of course, but graphics are really similar. The game flow is very similar. So similar but not the same. Yeah, good game, worth checking out. When I played on the Powkiddy, I didn't get anything to work that was good enough to actually sit down and play. The game that worked the best for me was, I can't remember what it was called, but it was a Tetris clone, and it was one of the featured games. And I didn't stick with it because what I noticed was there was a very large amount of input lag. And for a Tetris game, that's not going to jive. So I didn't pursue the Powkiddy version too much after that because I didn't, I don't want to play like a Twitch platformer with heavy input lag. I set it aside. So I tried a handful of the featured games, and by the featured games, I'm talking about like if you head over to the Pico 8 website, the series of carts that's front and center, and those, of course, they didn't work. So it sucks. It really does. Some of the things I tried was a Retro 8 is the name of a prominent Pico 8 emulator.
or you know, interpreter for the OpenDingux system. I got the OPK file, and I tried to install it on my Anbernic 280V, and I got nowhere. Brother. It sucked. So I think for now, I've let go of the portable dream as it relates to Pico 8. But I've still been enjoying the game. There's a rhythm game that I really liked on it. The name I can't quite remember. Actually, you know what? Let's open it up here. So I can there it is. Give you the name of some of the games I liked. Explore. Ninja Cat is really good. That's one of the featured games you'll find right away. Scan It is pretty good. That's like a scan the groceries kind of game. It's a little weird, but I liked it. There's a newer game called Tangerado, which is like a Robotron. I can't think of the game that it's supposed to be like, but it's like a, you know, an arena shooter, classic 80s type arena shooter. Let's go down a little bit. I have a Pad Test is a good one for checking for input lag. There's a lot of really good dungeon crawlers. Oh yeah, here's one. House Centipede I liked a lot. It's just Centipede, or it's not Centipede. It's a snake game, like a traditional snake game, but you're eating houses. So as the snake gets bigger and bigger, it's like you're playing as a giant monster eating a town, which I like. Pika More is a fun game. That's like a dating simulator, but the actual gameplay revolves around, you know, just collecting the heart objects while staying out of the landmine areas. Pico Fox, highly recommend it. It's only one level, but the port of you know, Star Fox, the original Super Nintendo Star Fox, to the Pico 8, very, very well done. What else do we have? P-Craft I had some fun with, but I only played it once, so I don't know if I'd list it amongst my favorites. Wolfenstein 3D is also a must-play, but again, it's only one level. Wizard's Rule is one of the games I come back to quite a lot. That's like a Wizards of War clone for Pico 8. Also Pico Sprint, you know, the Super Sprint game I made for the Pico 8. What else? Pico Hot, the Pico 8 version of Super Hot, very, very good. Pico Dapon is probably my favorite. That's, you know, I guess we talked about that a lot last week. What else we have here? An earlier version of House Centipede. Dungeon of the Lich Queen and Dungeon of the Lich King are both really good. Those are dungeon crawlers. The Demon Within, that's a pretty good game. Wizardish is kind of good. I just think it's neat that they try to make a game themed like wizardry. What else do we have here? Escape the Dungeons, pretty good game. This is the rhythm game. What is this called? Ninja Cat 2.0. Pico Night Pumpkin. I don't know. A couple slot machine games. Yeah, here we go. This is probably the one I've played the most of all the Pico 8 games, and it is called Little Space Rangers. It's a little side-scrolling game that it's not clear to me if the levels are randomly generated or if it just has a large number of levels, and then it randomly picks out which one you use. But fast-paced side-scroller with you know, several different levels, different every time you play. A lot of good content there, and that I think was the first Pico 8 game that I really got into. Not one of those games I listed worked on the Power Kitty, which is why I let it go. Shut down. I did look into the programming side of it a little bit. I went through part 1 of a tutorial series where they basically broke down some of the basics of design flow and how that stuff kind of works. I got a program working with, you know, that draws a couple geometric shapes and you can move them around and whatnot, but the tutorial continues and I have not continued with it, probably because I recently got a hold of Pixel Game Maker MV, and I've kind of opted to work with that a little bit more because it seems like I'm understanding that one, and the walls, there aren't as many walls. Like the Pico 8, like by its definition, is very limited. So once you figure it out, you can make a Pico 8 game, and that's about it. The good part is you're working with Lua, which, you know, is usable elsewhere. But I don't know. I put more work into Pixel Game Maker MV. So in terms of what games I would actually make on the Pico 8, I think Pico 8 needs more pinball, personally. I look at that system and I see a potential for the pinball construction set. You ever play that on MS-DOS? I love that game. Where you have the left side is like a pinball table and the right side is like a scoreboard. I think that would fit really well, especially since you could just make like a decent object-oriented pinball table and then mark it as a template, and then like, hey, if you wanted to make a pinball table, feel free to copy this game and shuffle the objects around and rename it. Celeste, that's what they do with Celeste. If you pay attention to the newly updated games, the newly released games, there's a lot of Celeste clones where they just rearrange the objects and rearrange the all the stuff. So yeah, that's a bit of a Pico 8 geek out there. I enjoy it. Shortly after getting into it, I checked out a couple of the other ones. The TIC 80 is also pretty good, but nothing holds up quite up to the Pico 8, which is interesting because it's like the other fantasy consoles or whatever, they boast better system restrictions or less system restrictions, but they lack in terms of like the community software base. TIC 80 can make a great game. It can make you can do more with it. You can fit more in your game, but you can't open that thing up and find games for days and days and days like you can with the Pico 8. So I don't know. Let's get back to the email because there was more there to check out. What is the ETA on the Powkitty versus Ambernick video? I actually sat down with these yesterday and I started working with them. I don't have a solid ETA for you, but this is something that is going to get done. This is a real thing. I'm going to opt for making something that has information and actually gets released versus like a big production number that gets postponed for years and years and years. Because I remember when you sent the Powkitty over, you were like, if I give this to you, I want to see a review. Is that something you think you can do? And yes, it is. So that will be soon. What is it now? I want to set like a reasonable deadline so that there's a deadline, because I think that will make it happen. But I also don't want to come up with one like on the spot, half cocked. So let's just say it's coming very soon. How's your FF1 game going? Not good. I sat down with it a couple times, and I had a difficult time getting started for a couple reasons. I wanted to play on the Powkitty, but I was held off because it's like, well, if I do it on the Powkitty, then I can't do like a Let's Play like we did last month. So let's do it on RetroArch. And then I tried to do it on RetroArch, and I was having recording issues, and I was like, ugh, couldn't do it. So I've actually had a difficult time getting it started. So I think this week, if I can't get RetroArch up and running, then I'm just going to tap out, and I'll play it on the Powkitty so I can play it at home by myself at least. It sucks because I'm really interested in playing it, because I like the Final Fantasy games. Even if I don't beat them, I like the bit I play of them. I played the first bit up until you cross the bridge and you get the orb, and then the Final Fantasy like splash screen plays, and then the theme plays after the first like hour of play. I've done that in the past, and that was always, yeah, it was a big moment. So I kind of want to get at least that far again, but we'll see. So he says, I've beaten Astos and healed the Elf Prince, who has just given me the Mystic Key. I will say this much. I will say that this ROM hack I'm playing does seem to bump up the difficulty a few notches. There is much more use of status ailments by the enemies, and the guild is sparse. I really like the new classes, though. What original classes did you choose? Haven't started yet. What are their names? Haven't picked them yet. Are you one of those people who likes to name your characters in such a way as to make some outlandish sentence like bear farts are fun? No, I would probably give them actual names. I honestly can't remember what I did in the past. I think I named them after my brothers or something. My name, and then two of my brothers I commonly played games with, and then the fourth one was like one of my friends or something. I just gave them simple names because I found it easier to go there in my imagination if they had real person names. So here we go. Retro news. Tailgater, an expensive OG Game Boy game, is being re-released by Limited Run Games. So instead of paying $70 for a cart, you can now pay $35. It's a pass for me. Yeah, I think this is another case of something that would have been awesome, years ago. But they sell them out. If you look at the other games they have, they sell out apparently. So what are you gonna do? Sell me the ROM for $5 and I'm in. There are several games on sale on itch.io. Here's a few I think you'd like. Super Rad Raygun, MetaNet Hunter G4, and Fates of Ort. I did look at the sale a little bit on itch. Didn't see much, but I didn't spend a long time digging either. Super Rad Raygun. Looks very Game Boy-ish. You know me, I like my Game Boy stuff. $150. $150 for the Windows game. Got a side-scroller with monochrome graphics. I dig it, man. I don't know if I'll spend the $1.50, but it looks cool. Same with MetaNet Hunter G4. We've got, yeah, it's on sale. 87 cents. You know I like my monochrome games. It's a weakness I have. And then Fates O Art, which it's so close to fart. The name is so close to fart. It really is. This one's not monochrome, and it's $10.50. But we have, it looks like a strategy game. Retro-inspired fantasy RPG with a focus on strategic action. Yeah, neat looking game. Did you pick up any of that stuff? What do you think, man? Anything in there for old Hemrock? What else do we have in the email? There is a working PS1 made out of Legos. I did see that. That's another one of these. Hey, it's still just a PS1. It's made out of Legos, but it's still just a PS1. There's some speculation about the next Ambernick handheld. I think I saw this one as well. Give me a second while it loads up. Yeah, the RG552. Looking good. Nothing we really know about it yet, though. Ambernick's doing a lot of good work in a short amount of time. And some people on Indiegogo are trying to make the ultimate gaming handheld. Oh, this will be good. Let's see what they've come up with. Ultimate gaming handheld. Project Valhalla. Which means the only way to play it is if you die in battle. Alright, so I'm going to pause this so that I can watch this little trailer and see what they've come up with for this ultimate handheld. Okay, I sat and watched it, and he's got a prototype that he can't say much about, but this is what I see. We're looking at $199 as their current price that they're talking about. The specs are not available at this point, and all of the stuff he demos in terms of usage really makes it look a lot like almost like a tablet rather than a game system, but a tablet that's got a usable controller on the left and right hand sides of it. So you can see as he's flipping through the apps, you can see like Kodi there and Netflix and all that stuff. That wouldn't get me to buy a console though. What does interest me, if you scroll down, is there's there's 3 people with these things sitting next to each other. So we know a couple of things. One, we know that it has network capabilities, and we know that it doesn't run OpenDingix if it has, you know, Kodi and Netflix and whatever, which means the possibility of, you know, getting a couple of these things and actually doing some jamming, which, you know, they are more expensive, $200. But that is the great fault of Ambernick at this point, is that I can't get a second Ambernick and play 2 players with my wife. It's one of the things I really wish that console could do. So if this can do it, I don't know. I might be into it. I don't know. We'll have to see. I want to get some more information on it though. So thanks for the heads up on that one. It is actually called the Ultimate Gaming Handheld, or at least that's what the name of this article is. So I don't know. Project Valhalla, that's a thing that exists. Hemrock says, I hope you and the fam are doing well. I'm rooting for you, Hemrock. Thanks, man. I hope you're doing well as well. So, yeah, awesome. I appreciate the email. You got some really good stuff in there. Let's head over to YouTube and see what the other folks are saying. All right, here we go. 6 days ago. Yeah, Gaming Beast. Since Postal 2 was mentioned by Senor Death Adder, or rather Senor Adder, he says, it would be fun to try out multiplayer in the future. Yeah, I agree. I actually installed it again. I ran it briefly. Didn't play it a ton, but I started Apocalypse Weekend because I played all the way through the main story, but I didn't play all the way through Apocalypse Weekend. So I played that for like maybe 15 minutes or so to make sure it worked, and I have it installed so we can do multi. I'm totally down. Even though, like, I know it's going to be not great. Because usually if we're going to play multiplayer, like first-person shooting, that's that old, we just play Unreal Tournament.
either Unreal Tournament or Deathmatch Classic, but I'm down for it, for the lulz, if nothing else. Sean, man, good to hear from you, brother. I hope you're doing well. Maximilian says, I have one too. He's talking about my Pocket Game Player video. It was a little weird toy I made a video about a couple years ago. Cool, man. I'll give that guy a thumbs up. Hemrock, 6 days ago on Monday Night Morrowind. He says, you're welcome. Glad I could help. You need the Boots of Blinding Speed. Great item that boosts your speed significantly. And later he says, that's why you always need to levitate, even if only for a few seconds. Either an enchanted item, even if it's a single-use enchanted item, a piece of paper, a spell, if your stats are high enough, a potion, or whatever. And then later he says, nice jump. All notes on the playing in Morrowind. That's awesome, man. I appreciate that. I went back and saw the jump you're talking about. I was wandering around in Vivek, which, by the way, I hate the way that city's laid out. If you're familiar with Morrowind, the big city is like confusing as heck, in my opinion. And it's multi-level, so I just jumped from like the upper level down to the bottom level, and I used like the way it's all glitchy to kind of slide down the geometry. It was really weird, but it seemed to work. Death Adder says, based Swingle on getting the N64 to be the cover for the episode. The N64 requiring a $60 on eBay expansion pack to play a few games is pretty weak sauce. That's why I've held off on getting the Goldfinger 64 with Sean Connery cartridge. I'm probably going to make my Steam account private for a couple of weeks while I speed run through a few of the Retro Kaiser recommended video games. Video games in air quotes, obviously. I don't mind if you read my Postal 2 review on air. Here it is in the comment section if anyone is curious. Yeah, let's go ahead and read it. He says, I've so far only made it to the end of Tuesday in the game due to the controller support being ultra sloppy, but I plan on finishing it eventually. I love the humor in the game, and the original Xbox era graphics is charming. Outside the controller issues, the game has a really comfy feel to it, if that makes any sense. Pros, a video game made before everyone pretended to be offended by anything on Twitter. A video game made before Twitter, and features my hero, Gary Coleman. Cons, the controller board support is barely functional at times, and anytime I change around some of the buttons, it would make some of the buttons not function properly. You'll need to keep a keyboard nearby. Which makes this hard to play plugged into a TV. Controller support, in an uncomfortable nightmare world sort of way. Yeah, kind of. That's right. You're a big console guy, so you need controllers. I know you're going to hate this answer, but there is a way to make things work with good controller support when they don't otherwise. You could try downloading the program Joy2Key, which is used to map any button on your controller to any button on your keyboard. It takes a long time to set up, and you have to set it up like individually per game. But if you have a game you really like, and you really want it to use a controller, and it just isn't jiving, that's the way to make it work. I've had the most success with that program playing the old Tomb Raider games. Tomb Raider 1 on PC, making it work like the old PlayStation version. That's the program that let me do it. But otherwise, yeah, good review. Death Adder, man, I haven't loaded up Skype, but I haven't forgot about your invite either. We'll do some wrestling, casting. Desm says, Pico 8 is one of the most exciting things for me right now. I love the demakes and new stuff coming out. It's really creative and unique. There is lots to find. I play stuff on my browser, and I often try out the newer projects once I find the games I really enjoy. I put them on my PS Vita, since there is now an unofficial Pico 8 emulator that runs the carts pretty well. It's such a nice way to play the games. That's awesome, dude. That's so awesome. There's a really good interpreter for Android. So I have a Pico 8 interpreter like on my phone. The problem is the touch controls are kind of garbage, so it's not really super useful unless I find some sort of controller solution for my phone. And right now I don't have one that I'm pleased with. So yeah, Pico 8 is awesome. Awesome for sure. Toxic Vortex 8. This is on the Castle Wolfenstein video that I made years ago. He says, yes, the old form of content before anyone cared about scripts. You earned a sub. That's awesome, dude. Thank you so much. Now, that video is very old, and I don't really do MS-DOS videos very often anymore. It's been a long time since I've done one. I did like making them. Yeah, that was 7 years ago. Golly. That's a fun game, too. Yeah, so that's always nice when somebody leaves a comment or whatever. Somebody finds the stuff. And then there's one from Swingle, but he says I don't need to read it on the air. He talks about a little bit more about the N64 roundup that we had last week. Yeah, if you want to read that, go to the you can just head to the comments over on YouTube. Let me pop open Discord real quick, because over on Discord I also have the Failbag channel, just in case anybody wants to chime in somewhere where YouTube is not in control of what you can and can't say. That's it. There's some chatting that went down on Discord, but there hasn't been anything new to be read on the air. So if you want to be a part of that, then yeah, come join us on Discord. That's fun. You know, don't let your memes be dreams. Join us on Discord, I guess. Boys and girls, you know what that sound means. That's TCR for this week. Thank you so much for listening, hanging out, talking some video games, listening to some chiptunes, and doing what we do. I appreciate the time you spend here, and whatever it is that you're going to deal with in this week moving forward. I just want to offer you some encouragement and let you know that I'm rooting for you. I hope it goes well. I'll see you next week.